fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. This is going to be a really fun one, because I just got back from a trip going after these monster snook, these Overslot snook on artificial lures. The quick backstory: my brother Luke and I started this club called the Insider Club. It's an online fishing club, and it's now going into, I guess now it's 5th year, if you guys can believe it. It started off completely underground. You really had to be invited that those first 6 or 7 months to even get on there. You couldn't even find it on our website. Now it's in a massive community. I mean, 14,000 members, many new members joining every single day, every single hour now. And we have a wide variety of anglers in there. We have full-time fishing guides everywhere from, Texas, obviously tons here in Florida, guys like Patrick Garmison in Alabama and Jod Owens up there in North Carolina, and our boy Captain Hollywood Johnson in Isla Mirada. So we have full-time fishing guides who are members. We have a ton of weekend warriors, and we even have some newbies who really just want to maximize their time and save money on tackle. And one of the coolest parts about the community is the online platform where everyone's showing the reports, not their spots, but showing the reports, talking about the trends, and just sharing. It's an amazing place to share what's working now, broken down by region. And Luke and I spend, at least an hour every day. I've taken a lot of my Facebook time away from that Facebook group and have shifted it over to the Insider Club, because those are our paying customers. That's where we got to love on these people and treat them like family, which they are. And I kept seeing this guy, Marcos, and his wife, Luana, and they're posting like these massive snook. And first time you see someone who's in your community, in your club, you're like, oh, cool, they had a great day. They caught 6 really big snook. And I see it again and again and again. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with these guys? So I start doing some research, and apparently they're from Brazil. Luana had her own fishing TV show with Marcos. They're the real deal. And they're catching these Overslot, these massive snook and redfish and cobia and tarpon trout, everything on artificial lures. They're not even having to use live bait. And in fact, we got a funny story about Marcos' boat, how he uses his live well. And so long story short for this intro, I reach out to them. Actually, Marcos reached out to me first, but I was about to reach out to them. And I was like, I was going to get you on the podcast anyways. He's like, why don't you just come down to Everglades City down there in South Florida and just watch what we do and be a part of it. And so the stars aligned. We found a day where, we were going to be able to dodge some storms, and Luke and I went down there just for one day of fishing, and we absolutely killed it. If you saw one of my recent Facebook and Instagram posts, and of course, if you're an insider member, you saw my insider report. I'm talking monster snook on artificial lures. So Marcos Baldo, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Joe. It was a pleasure to be here.
Dude, I had so much fun with you and your wife last couple of days. I guess 2 days ago now, losing track of time. But, man, what a day. Dang.
Yeah, it started out a little tough. We knew it was going to be a little rough for us, after that tropical storm went by, changing the pressure and everything. But, we had a couple tricks in our sleeve, and we thought, we can do this. So, we never, skip a bit, so we said, let's do it. And you guys came down, and we did it. It was great, and we loved it.
Yeah, well, kudos to you. When my brother and I obviously wanted to kind of see the proof in the pudding that it wasn't just some fluke, and we knew it wasn't, because you guys have just countless trips that have documented. But, as fishermen listening, you all know, and, we have members that have their own fishing TV shows, and some days when all the pressure's on and the cameras are rolling and you have to make it happen, it's just a grind. And Marcos made it happen. He put us on some monster fish, and it was really, really cool. So we're going to talk all about that. I want to hear your story first. In Brazil, you guys have robalo. It's the same as a snook. Talk about kind of growing up and how you got into this and how you came over to the States and started using some of these same tactics that you learned over in Brazil to catch these monster fish.
Well, when I grew up fishing in rivers, the golden dorado, peacock bass, big catfish, and all the white fish, that is around on the rivers in Brazil. I grew up since a little boy, just going with my dad fishing that kind of fishery, But when I was 18, I came to the U.S., and when I arrived here, I fell in love with the country. And I said, this is the place where I want to be. And, I traveled a little bit. I went to Alaska, California, Vegas, live in those places, fish a little bit here and there, but never too serious, just to try the waters. But then in the 90s, I came to Florida, and then I said, this is it. I mean, this is paradise, man. Sunny all day, a lot of fish, fresh water, salt water, everything I want. So we started fishing here, and then somewhere around the 2000, I started fishing for a lot of deep sea fishing, and all my fishing experience was in the deep waters, just sailfish and swordfish, dolphin, wahoos, and I love that. But somewhere around then, I met this guy Paul through my job, and he goes, "Hey, you got to do." This fishing on the backcountry. We do flats fishing. And I said, well, let's do it. Well, we didn't have much to go with. I mean, this guy had a flats boat and a handheld GPS. And then navigating the waters of Chacalaska, Everglades City, Flamingo, it can be tough for a newcomer,
Mm-hmm.
Well, for a couple of years, I envy a lot of anglers that I'd seen it cleaning fish on the fishing station, and I go, man, one day I want to be able to do that. I want to, a nice snook, nice red, trout, and then I go, man, for a few years, we couldn't catch a fish to save our life. Well, fasting forward, I opened this export business to Brazil for marine parts and tackle. And through the businesses, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of fishermen in Brazil. And I started, they took me fishing for snook in Brazil with jighead and soft shrimp. Back then, we were using, rip tie, we're using those paddle tails and all that, and some jigs. And that was the thing that we had. Well, I got in contact with the DOA, and I started sending DOA to Brazil, and that was a hot tamales over there. There was a new lure coming up and everything. People loved it. So they started catching fish for that, but then exchange rate in Brazil and all that, the money, dollar and real, the Brazilian money, and make that bait too expensive. So people start making their own bait. They go, we're not going to stop fishing. So they start making their own bait with silicone, the same silicone we use around your windows, your bathtub, and on the trims, on the wood, whatever. We start using silicone and make their own shrimp. That was ugly as hell, but it worked, and then it was working better than other lures we were using before. So even though it looked ugly, it was hard and ugly, but we're catching fish. So, technology came about, and we heard about plastisol, and that when I started looking into making my own baits, I said, I can make this thing. We're catching fish, and I think if we make this bait and I go fish in the U.S. with this bait, I think we can kill it. So we started making our own lures. I got a little warehouse in Pompano Beach, and I started making our own lures, creating our own colors, melting plastisol, microwave, mixing with bleeders. And then one day we decided to stick a rattle inside. I was able to put rattle inside the shrimp, and we are going crazy with it. I mean, we just completely lost because now it's limitless. We can do whatever we want. And we started fishing really hard down here in the southwest of Florida. And, man, that was a game changer. We go, whoa, can catch fish. and we start catching a lot of fish. But it took a little while because we had to figure the right spot to fish the lure because we fish deep. You know, we like to fish waters from 8 to 20 to up to 30 feet. And this is what we like to do. This is how I learned how to fish snook.
And can you explain why? You know, in terms of that many of these because I saw them on your fish finder. I saw them in the boat when we caught them. I mean, these massive school of overslot fish were all deep.
Yes. The thing is, after a while, we'll figure, trying to figure things out. If you fish shallow, you're going to catch, you're going to get into the small fish that, 15, 20, 25, 26 inch of fish. If you fish around trees, logs and oyster bars, you might find a big one there, no big deal. And you go over there and you catch a big fish, fishing shallow. But when you go deep, you're not talking about one fish. You're talking about a school of big fish. You're talking about, this fish are getting together there to feed. And they feed because, their structure that they look for it's deep. And either weather cold or weather hot, water cold or water hot, they want to be deep. Those big fish are smart. They want to be protected. And deep water, they feel that's how they feel comfortable. And we knew that, so we started looking for those structures. And the important thing is you got to find the underwater structure. It would be a drop-off, a ledge, could be a hump, it could be a rock, could be artificial reef. Once you find it, when you find them, and you got to calculate current into the equation and see how the current is going to hit that structure and how it's going to swipe the bait into that hole, that big deep water. And you got to understand that when you understand how the water is pushing all the bait into this hole, the fish will be there, and the fish, it doesn't matter if you have a purple color, black color lure, or if you have couple colors of lures and you have the right technique, you're going to get into those fish. And they over there waiting for you just to put something in front of them. So that's the way we search this fish, is underwater structure, water deviation, current, how the current is going to hit the underwater structure, how that current is going to push the bait, and where the bait's going to go through, where is the exit gate from that structure. And once you locate that, it becomes a pattern. So you do it the first time and you think, okay, we found the fish, but then you look some other spots and you go, okay, that's similar. Let's try here. And you find the fish again, and then it becomes a pattern, and you start catching those big fish. And we depend on the current. Current is very important. We like to have a 70-80% coefficient on the current. Well, the higher is the current, the more and the larger will be the fish in the area. So that's a factor key for us. Current. I don't care the color of the water; it doesn't matter, because the technique is like a dinner bell for the fish, And you gotta, once you're jigging, it's not something new that anybody never seen it. Is the application is different. The way we use that jig on the places I'm talking about here, that's when it becomes super efficient. I mean, it's ridiculous. When you get into the fish, it's just like, okay, let's have fun now. It's a cool way to fish. And when people fish shallow, for example, and some days it might be hard fishing shallow, and just adding this technique to the astronaut, it's gonna just make their reach to the fish easily. They're gonna find the fish deep now where they couldn't find shallow. They're gonna go deep and find them deep. So it's just one more thing they can do to find fish. it's just one of those wonderful things that the more you learn, the more fish you catch.
Yep, and it was certainly a learning experience for Luke and I. And for those of you listening, he's describing a lot of deeper water, 10 to 25, 30 feet. Some of it, because we get to see a whole blend of it, is going out there just to publicly mark wrecks, and we've done that off Boca Grande. I mean, there's a couple wrecks between 1 and 3 miles. They're completely public numbers, and I know what we just did would absolutely kill it. And we've caught some big snook kind of by accident on some of those wrecks. We were going for grouper and snapper, and all of a sudden, like, we start reeling up some big snook. We're like, well, that's kind of odd. And now doing it with you, it made sense. And then we went inland. I mean, I'm talking like, we were basically inshore fishing, but finding some of those points and some of the areas at the end of the mouth of some of these rivers and channels that water was really deep, 8 to 11, 12 feet deep, that it's just been dug out from years and years of water, lots of current ripping by there. And those snook, big snook, were just packed in there as well. And also, if you grew up at all like me, we started targeting snook using an old white bucktail. It was a Millie's bucktail jig. For those of you in Florida who've been fishing for a long time, you remember Millie's white bucktail jigs. And my very first one, I shared this with you, Marcos, was when we were down in Marco Island, not too far from where you live, and we were just fishing off the beach, Caxambas Pass. We'd go to those little spoil islands and fish off that into the channel. We'd cast out in the channel where it's really deep, let the heaviest bucktail jigs we could find, and do the same thing. We were just basically popping them off the bottom, and it worked. It worked amazing. And it reminded me a lot of what you do. And you guys are using heavier jig heads. You're getting these shrimp, which look amazing underwater, and they're like indestructible, by the way. And you're just popping off the bottom. And it was mind-boggling how well it worked. And we caught massive snook. I mean, multiple overslot snook. We caught redfish. We caught trout. We caught cobia. We caught whiting. We caught some random species. All there in one day using these shrimp, and we even went really shallow. We went into some of the mangroves, getting really close to Everglades City, and fished some of those little points. Same deal. Find the current, find the areas where that current's ripping around those points, and we would cast in there slightly lighter jig heads, right? And then boom, just popping them off the bottom, and those snook were just eating it up. It was so cool.
Yeah, I think the size of the jig heads for, like, for example, people ask me, how heavy you go on a jig head when you fish 6 feet of water? I say, I go half an ounce. They go, half an ounce on 6 feet of water? That's too heavy. And it's the contrary, man. The heavier the jig head, the more bites you're going to get. And when you hop that bait, and that jig head hits the bottom and makes a noise, and makes a big noise down at the bottom. And all the fishes, all the fish that is hang around the area, when they hear that knock on the bottom, they're going to come to it. They are curious. They are super curious. Sometimes you get to a spot, and it might be dead for 10, 15 minutes. And then you start catching fish, and you ask yourself, why I'm catching fish now and I wasn't catching fish 15 minutes earlier? It's because when you start bouncing that jig head down in the bottom, it's making a knock noise on the bottom where the fish is so curious. They will come to check it out. And that hop that you do with the tip of your rod off the bottom, it shows the fish this thing is alive, and they're going to eat it. It doesn't matter if it's purple, red, black, whatever. They're going to eat it. You guys are very successful with your own lures, and you use one color, which is one of the most popular colors for catching big fish. And that color, if you present it right, it's going to catch fish. There is no doubt about it. And we use different colors because we fish a little deeper. So we want stuff that are a little darker sometimes, or we go into that natural color, that gold, that make translucent, kind of orange. I like those colors better. And just for a note here, we noticed that over the years, making those lures and just melting those plastisol, and every time you add 2 colors of glitter to your lure, will make a huge difference. One is red and one is black. When you melt a plastisol and you add red glitter to a lure, is a big thing. Once you add black glitter to a lure, is a big thing. They become a very, very special bait right there. I don't know why I'm not a scientist, but we noticed that those are the 2 colors that we always add to our shrimp. So, it might be some factor, with watercolor, depth, whatever, but we just I like to have the red and I like to have the black. They are awesome colors.
And that's, you're saying the glitter, not the full lure. You just got little.
Not the full lure,
Okay.
just the glitter. And another thing, when a soft bait it's loaded with glitter, it's not a good thing. Really. You cannot overload a lure with a lot of glitter. It has to be very subtle, where it's there and it shows the silhouette of the lure, which is the most important thing. But the jig head, going back into the jig head is important. Heavy is good. It's not bad. You get sometimes it snags, but we come up with some weedless jig heads that help us, going through that. So we get less snags when we do the weedless jig heads, but they're still heavy. We use a half ounce, 3/4. We don't go any light than half ounce. If I fish 4 feet of water, I still using half an ounce because I want that knock on the bottom. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I can confirm that. We fished with him, and I thought he was absolutely crazy. And the half ounce, we were in 1.3 to 4 feet of water, and we were catching a ton of redfish and snook with a half ounce jig head. And it's not just the knocking too. Where we were, had some. I'm guessing it was kind of more of muddy bottom. We couldn't even see the bottom. It was so much water moving, but you could tell it was kind of muddy. And this also, when you have a jig head that's that heavy, it's making a big ploof. Just like a bait fish or a shrimp hitting the bottom, and that does. It attracts attention. And I did use slam shady in that area because I had been broken off, and I was like, I'm just going to throw the slam shady. And I only had a 1/4 ounce, which is normally as heavy as I would go in 3 or 4 feet of water. And I did catch a redfish, but it wasn't until I was letting that thing hit all the way to the bottom with that current moving. And so, it blew me away how effective that was with those really heavy jig heads. And I noticed too, the kind of, I guess it's the round jig head did really, really well overall, because you got a couple different styles of jig head.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, the jig head molds?
Well, when we first start fishing with jig heads, we use the ball jig head. And the ball jig head, for some reason, it falls down to the bottom. When it hits bottom, for some reason or another, attracts more fish in certain areas where the water is murky, or if there is a lot of suspension on the water, or you had like a couple days with a lot of rain and a lot of water coming from rivers, and then the ball jig head works better. But then when you get into the clear water, then we use a jig head that has a big eye on it, and that it's better than the ball jig head. But if I am to start to fishing in any area, sometimes I prefer going with the ball jig head. It's just one of those. It's a gut feeling thing, and we've done it. we tested everything. You seen it what we did here at the house when you were here. We put stuff on the microwave, trying to melt stuff, and I showed you guys. So we're all about testing and see how it works and what's gonna work, what's not gonna work. So we done it at all, and we find out, through the years fishing with different jig heads, that the ball jig heads is more effective, and it doesn't have to have color on it, just the natural lead color. Maybe if you spray just a clear coat on it, and it gets kind of shiny, and man, that's killer. For some reason, we caught so much big fish with ball jig heads. It's just like countless. I mean, and my wife Luana, if she opens a jig head box, she goes for the ball jig head. Mm-hmm. And that's her preference. And of course, over the years, you develop a preference for certain things, and that's her thing. She likes the ball jig head, and I use them. They're also better on current. If you're fishing in areas with a lot of current, the ball jig head, it falls right, it holds position better than any other jig head. One thing is, it's very important, is that what the ball jig head does. If I'm fishing, let's say, a mouth of a river or an area with offshore with a lot of current, and I feel it's pushing hard, and I'm losing bottom too much, when I jig it, and my jig head will, before I touch the bottom again, is like 4 or 5 feet away, I don't like that. I want a short hop. I want a 1 foot hop. You hop it 1 foot, foot and a half, and you want that thing to hit bottom again. So the ball jig head does that. You lift it, you jig it, you bring this jig up, and then the current only pushes it like a foot, foot and a half. Different jig heads, they will travel a little longer, and it takes a little longer for them to fall and hit bottom again. And sometimes big snook, they don't like that. They don't like to chase that bait too far. It's just like a human being trying to jump a fence. You go to that fence, and when you get to that fence, it's too high, and you just back off, and you're not going to jump. And the snook will do the same thing. If you hop that lure too far, the snook will go for it and will back off because it's too far. It hopped too long. They want a short hop. And the ball jig head will do that too. So that's why sometimes I prefer the ball jig head.
It's good. And then
that's the best explanation I can come up with.
let's talk about the actual lure, the shrimp, and talk about. We talked about colors, but talk about the size. I noticed you had quite a few different size. For the most part, the mold looked pretty similar. And talk about the size, then we'll talk about the strength of it and the microwave test and all that as well. But talk about the actual shrimp and why it's designed this way to catch so many fish.
Well, we over the years we know that let's say snook, because that's the fish we target the most, and that's when we made the lure, we are looking into, okay, how can we catch big snook with this lure? We started out with small lures, like 4-inch lure. 4-inch shrimp, which is it's a decent size. You can catch pretty big fish with that. But of course, if you increase the size of the shrimp, you eliminate all the small fish, which sometimes that can take the bite away from a big fish. So by making a bigger shrimp, 4.5, 5 inches, now you can feel the small fish packing at it, but they cannot swallow it. So it gives you more chance to catch that big fish, because that big fish wants that big bait. But these small lures, we made them so you can get into the trout, the redfish. It's easier for them to really get that lure in their mouth. And some of them are articulated on the tail, is because when, let's say, a trout tries to bite it, that lure will fold it, and the trout can get a mouthful, and you get a good hook set. If the shrimp doesn't fold inside this fish's mouth, then you might lose the bite. So we come up with a small shrimp, and then the big shrimp, it doesn't matter because now you're talking about overslot snook, and anything over 4 inches, I mean, they will. It's like a pinnet to them, they can eat that with no problem. But bigger baits catch bigger snook, and that's why we designed some of the big shrimp. And if you want to avoid all the little fish around, that's the way to do it with the big shrimp. And as far as the colors, we don't want to make a lot of colors. The colors are they important? Yes, to a point. Yes, they are important. But if you follow the basics, you clear water, clear bait, dark water, darker bait, if you follow the basics and then we say, let's stay with the basics because the technique and it's more important than the color of this bait. And so we kept very limited. So we don't mess things up because it can be confusing. What kind of color am I going to use here or there? And I don't want to be dealing with that when I'm fishing. And so fill colors is better, produces the same way. Everybody, we fish with, you're here, you fish with us. So we fish with pink color. We fish with dark green. We fish with natural color. And everybody was catching fish. There was no... Yep, the fish wasn't being shy about the color whatsoever. So so that was for us. It's not important, but at the same time, if you have a favorite color, you're gonna catch fish with that favorite color because that's what you're gonna throw. And that's if you throw a bait for too long, you're gonna start catching fish with that bait. So I think color is not the most important thing here in this case.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the confidence because I like the natural colors like the Slam Shady. I was going with that natural looking shrimp, and I got to put it out there just because this doesn't happen all the time. I caught more big snook than Luke did. I got to put it out there on the podcast for everybody to hear. I was the snook guy, but now
your brother is a great. Great angler.
He's a much better fisherman than me, and. Fortunately, we had him to catch a ton of fish, redfish and cobia, and finished off the slam with the trout and whiting. And but yeah, it was neat that the fish were hitting everything. And number one was the deeper water. That's critical. Number two was a lot of current. Right. The second that we kind of lost it, we took a little lunch break and had some BLTs. And then the third piece was, having a heavy jig head, even going up to almost an ounce in a couple places. And yeah, and then having those big shrimp, it was cool. And then making sure you're going slow too, because that was, I caught 2 before Luke got 1, and Luke's a smart guy because he starts saying, all right, if Joe's doing something different, what is it? And we were fishing next to each other. He's like, aha. He's like, you're going a whole lot slower than me. And the second he slowed it down, he started killing everybody. That was another great tip. So tell me like where else have you tried this? And as people are thinking through areas like this, I mean, we're talking about any area that has deeper water, and I'm not talking 100 feet. I'm just talking, it could be 8 or 9 feet off of a flat. Obviously, inlets. I mean, this is the same kind of stuff. Those guys in Jupiter Inlet and Sebastian Inlet, it's the exact same thing they're doing with big old bucktails and naked jigs and stuff. I mean, they're just popping those things off the bottom using a similar technique. Where else have you guys applied this besides South Florida and Brazil?
We did Panama. They do a lot of in Panama. That was introduced into Panama, and they catching the black snook. They catching some whitefish and some big fish they never seen it before. And these people went crazy when we taught them the technique. They're like, oh my God, man, we can fish inshore and when it's rough and catch this kind of fish. And it works everywhere. Anywhere with salt water, it will work. It work around docks, around bridges, work inside canals, work anywhere there is salt water. You can use the jig technique with deeper water. You can go shallow water 4 feet, but you got to go heavy though. And once you find out how it works, you can fish anywhere you want. Basically, you can go shallow water and fish in shallow water at 4 foot of water and up. And anything less than 4 foot, that becomes a little tougher. But around docks, we fish in Stewart, we caught fish there. We fish in Boca Grande, we caught fish there. We fish in Pompano Beach or around the docks and marinas, and we caught fish there. But we always looking for two things, We're looking for deep water and we look for current. And that it's very important so you can catch the big fish and numbers of fish. Because that's how they school up. They school up in those areas. So yeah, pretty much you can fish anywhere with brackage water, salt water, beaches. You can fish on the beach with that too. If you find some drops on the beach, there is 5, 6, 7 feet. Yeah, man, just troll that. That'll work too. You can jig there. Pretty much you fish everywhere. There's certain things like, for example, we try a Sebastian Inlet. Yeah. And we aren't very successful there because the current over there is like just insane. So and there we couldn't produce much because the current was so strong and everything was so different, and we could not hop that lure the way we wanted to. We had to increase the weight to 2 ounces, 2.5, 3 ounces at a time. It became very difficult because there is a bit of sensibility you got to have. You have to know how, when you hop that lure, you want to know how the distance that lure travel on the water. You want to have that feeling, and you got to continuous pop that jig on the bottom on a certain distance. And over there was tough for us. But then again, the current was just insane. People were throwing like flare hogs, 3 ounce, 2.5 ounce flare hogs. So for us, it didn't work very well. But, when we went inland and fished the bridges, the docks, the mangroves, then we were able to catch some good fish.
Yeah, well, and Sebastian, that's not an inlet that you learn in a day. Like that, those guys up on the pier, like my buddy Joey and Peter Deeks, I mean, they've been fishing there their entire lives. That is a tough place, regardless if you're fishing from the pier, the jetty, or if you're on a boat drifting through or troll motor down. But yeah, that could be a gnarly place. Talk too about your just overall setup. We were using both bait casters and spinning. Talk about what kind of main line, the braid you're using, and the leader line that you found to be best for these big snook to get the maximum amount of strikes.
Okay, I like to use, like, if I'm offshore a little bit, if I go offshore, 15, 20, 25 feet of water, I like to use a 7.2, 7.4 rod, fast action rod. Has to be, a strong rod that can take some heat if you get into a big cobia or a really big snook and other stuff that is out there. And then, the reel, it's important, but it's not the most important. I concentrate on the rod better. Yep. Because I like a strong rod. I like a light rod because you're going to be jigging for, all day long. So it can make you tired.
Oh, the rod's, trust me, I know the rod is doing almost 100% of the work, right? It's what feels Absolutely. That strike. It's what sets the hook. And ultimately, it's what has to turn that fish. I mean, the reel is I could have done it with any kind of reel. It was that rod, to have a heavy enough rod was critical because man, it's a different story catching an upper slot snook than a 40 inch or bigger. I mean, I hadn't caught a big one like that in quite some time, And that very first one, remember that right when we got there, I was like, holy smokes, like that thing hit like a freight train. When you start talking about
Yeah.
over 40 inches, those are big fish.
Yeah, they fire hard, especially when they deep with current. You know, you need a big rod. You know,
Yeah.
it's not big. You just got to have a good rod with a good backbone to it.
Yep.
If you lift that tip of the rod or you swipe the rod to the side, you can turn that fish head, and that rod got to do that job. That's what the rod is supposed to do.
Yep.
When you put that pressure on the fish, and it has to turn, and the rod has to do that. The reel, you know, I always get an expensive reel, but I like to spool them with like a offshore. I go 40-pound braid. I like Daiwa, you know, the J8 Daiwa.
Yep.
You know, that's a good line. I never had a problems with. I try other lines, and I lost a lot of fish because the lines couldn't stood up to the task, man. It was tough, and it took me a long time to find the right line. And that Daiwa J, that was, for me, it was a game change. I landed 80-pound Goliath grouper jigging and on the structure, and I was able to, with the rod and the line, I was able to turn that fish head and bring to the boat, and that was a strong fish too. So I like that line. I like a good rod. I use I use a Shimano Curado. That's the one I use. But there's a lot of rods out there. There are great rods. Sometimes for the price, you got to pay the price for the rod. There's no way out. If you want a good rod, you have to pay the price for it.
Yep.
Like I say, the reel at 3,000 reel for me is just enough. I just want to my drag. I'll set my drag at on the structure between 8 to 10 pound drag. When you move that fish off, and then I'll open up. I'll go to like a 2 to 4 pound drag, because now I know my leader will be compromised by then. If you feel a good thump, you know that shrimp is inside that snook mouth. Most likely, it's going to be all the way in. So, and then I think about that all the time, and I open my drag at the end of the fight, make sure that it's light. So if the fish take off 1 or 2 times, I'll be able just to control a little bit and don't break my leader. I use from 40-pound leader. I don't go any lighter than 40. That's for sure. I'll never go. I mean, I'm fishing Southwest Florida, Flamingo, Everglades City. This place here, they hold big fish. So I don't want to compromise on my leader. I like leader and fluorocarbon leader. And it's funny that Luke was telling me about the difference about mono and fluoro, and I was surprised with that. And I'm going to give it a shot, because I have lost fish on fluorocarbon, 40-pound fluorocarbon, and 50-pound fluorocarbon. Well, there was one fish went right through it. You remember you hooked that one on the river?
Yep.
That went right through a 50-pound fluoro.
Yep.
So, yeah, I stick with the 40 and 50-pound fluorocarbon leaders. We use the connection we use between our braid and our fluoro is the FG knot. There's nothing stronger than that knot. And once you learn the technique how to tie it, it's quick, easy. And that knot is, I tell you, it's one of the best knots out there. We love that knot. That's the only thing we use. Our hooks for the jigs, man, it's just 5-aught or 6-aught, and they're just enough for the task. And hey, that's pretty much, that's what we use for our gear. My wife likes bait casters, so she uses bait casters. She uses, I think, a Boo Garcia Revo. And has a 22-pound off drag, and she loves that. That's how she has a better sensitivity with bait casters than the spinner. So that's how she fish with, and she does very well. Actually, her best snook was 36 pounds, and was a big girl. So very proud of that.
Yeah, the
And
30, not 36 inches, 36 pounds. That is a beast.
it was a 50-pound snook. Yeah, it was a big fish. Yeah.
Wow. So what's your biggest? Talk about maybe one of the biggest and just a story that sticks out to you where you guys just caught an amazing amount of really big snook.
Well, and this is when we fish. This is the thing. When we fish with this shrimp and this jighead and this technique that we use and the deep water, and we put all this package together, we catch fish all year round. It's not just summer or spring, or it's all year round. There is no bad day, and there's days that we will catch. Oh, and then this is not a lie. We'll catch 20, 24, 25 overslot snook in one day.
Wow!
And the thing is so crazy that a slot snook, we don't take a picture. We not even take the fish out of the water. Just unhook it and let it go. Let's go for the biggest one we can get. So we start getting into the 44s, 42, 41, sometimes 46. And this is the kind of fish we're looking for. And it can become really crazy sometimes when you got to this spot and at the right day and you knew it's going to be epic. And sometimes we don't even like to show everything we catch because people say, nah, you're not catching this on artificial lure. You guys use on live bait. You're lying to me. So we keep it down. But we do it for ourselves. We don't do it for anybody else. So we love snook fishing. We love being out there chasing them. We worry about them. We like to take care of them. Sometimes, we put our hurt on them because, we got people that we have to entertain and this and that. And but we try to keep, like today, we're going to go out in the afternoon and kept, just trying to catch a couple fish and check a couple areas to see if they're there. But we had so many epic moments catching snook down here. It's just unbelievable. If we're to put on film, people go nuts. It just one time we had summertime. This time of the year, this is the best time for that. Luana hooked a big snook. She was well over 40, and she brought it up, and I go, not even take out of the water. Let's release it. And right after that snook, there was a school of male snook, like about 6 or 7 male snook that was all over around this female. And I'm pushing with my hand, the snook, one of the big snooks is laying by the boat, she's just about to unhook it. And I got this bunch of male snook going all over, jump on top of it. And I was pushing those little fish away, and she let it go. And
you were pushing away with your hands?
With my hand, I was pushing the little snook away. Yeah,
that's crazy.
With my hand. They didn't care I was there. They just wanted to do their thing, And that was an epic moment right there.
That's crazy. Well, another epic moment happened just the other day with you, right? When
boy, that was one.
This was crazy. Where I had hooked into a nice snook. It broke off. That was one of the snook that ate through the leader, and it just happened to be rubbing its mouth and went into a little bit of structure, some trees, and then we saw a shark attacking it. But it didn't. We didn't know that it actually got it. We saw the shark going after it, and the snook went really, really shallow, like inches of water, and somehow escaped and was just kind of cruising away to get away, and was heading right towards the boat. And we'll put the video in the show notes. And all of a sudden, like Luke and I saw you hadn't seen it yet. You were doing something else, and Luke had the leader in front, or his lure in front of the snook's mouth, and was going right towards the boat. And you had cat-like reflexes, and all of a sudden, like the thing happened in a second. Thankfully, Luke's GoPro was on, and all of a sudden, you landed a free swimming snook, a 30+ incher. Yeah, I mean, it might have been, we didn't measure it because we wanted to get back in the water as quick as we could, but it was a big snook. And that was one of the craziest memories, man. And we were so pumped up.
I know, man. That thing, when it happened, I couldn't believe it. I had the extension of my net that was open.
Yeah.
And when Luke was saying, I heard you and Luke saying, there's a snook, it's fishing towards us. And I didn't pay attention. I think I was tying a knot or something. And I didn't look, Yeah, I'm a guy, I can only do one thing at a time. So then I look to my right and I see it. Luke was just playing with the lure in front of the snook head, and the snook is kind of on a daze. And I saw the net right next to me. I said, I can catch that fish. And I swipe it, and it was great. I was excited when I did it. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, and apparently I left you hanging because I was filming and I was so excited. You went to give me a high five. I just watched the replay yesterday with Luke, and he's like, I didn't even see. He's like, dude, you left Marcos hanging. I was like, I was so excited. It was pretty. It was pretty awesome.
It was something else, man. Definitely, it was something else.
Oh yes, good stuff. Well, brother, this has been really, really good. What we're going to do, because I'm sure if you've made it this far, you've got to be wondering, what is this shrimp lure? This is not something that is sold in stores, but we're gonna try to do something here with Marcos and Luana and try to get it out there. At least starting with our insider members, get you guys some access to it, and of course at 20% off. And then we'll definitely have to do another trip. We go out there and just film some of the techniques because the lure is critical. The right weight is critical. The spot obviously is critical, and then you have the actual presentation is critical. As I mentioned, Luke, who is an amazing angler and a much better angler than me, he wasn't catching as many fish until he just slowed it down and kept his rod tip up just a little bit higher. It's just those two little things after watching the rest of us that all of a sudden it clicked for him, and then boom, he was kicking our butt. So it was
That's
really right. Really neat to kind of learn a whole new technique, and it opened up. It opened up a lot of new opportunities, I will say. There's been tons of times where we are fishing a little deeper water and don't really have an application because we're like you. We usually don't fish live bait, and it's usually all artificial lures. And I mean, you've had days where you're out fishing everyone around you who's got live bait in these same spots. And tell them real quick about your the live bait hatch right behind you. What you've turned it into.
Well, I got this boat, and because I want to have a boat with I can do many things with, and I can go shallow and deep, and it came with this big live well.
Massive.
That's my bench. So it's a massive live well. So I look Luana one day and say, listen, what do we do with this thing? We put a new bench in here? She goes, no, we turn it into a trash can. So it's a trash can now. This is where we put our trash can, and that's where the beer bottle goes, the juice bottle goes, and all the trash goes.
Yeah, it's like legit, like one of those big Rubbermaid, like the kind you have in a kitchen, big Rubbermaid, like full on.
Lid.
Yep. With lid and everything. It's so funny. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. Good use of space.
We don't live like bait. We don't. I mean, we hardly ever. Luana likes to play around every now and then with live bait, just to fool around. But we 100% artificial lure. And this is one thing that people, when they see us going out fishing, they go, "You're gonna go out with a box of shrimp and a box of jighead? That's the only thing we need, but and it's the only thing we're gonna use." Yep. And that works for us, It's like you said it very well. It's one more thing you can add to your fishing style, and doesn't have to be very shallow. And then when there's nothing shallow, you go deep. Then you can do both. So it's just one more thing that's going to help you catch fish.
Yep, and I will tell you from seeing his bottom machine that there are some monster schools of monster snook out there a little bit deeper, and you don't have to go 30 miles. I'm talking even some of these public. I mean, these are not things like he didn't go drop a car down there or a locomotive. These are things that are public numbers, and they're all over. I mean, from Texas all the way up to North Carolina, all these states publish the GPS spots from every artificial reef and wreck out there, and you will be shocked, especially in the state of Florida, obviously for snook. But these same lures will work on everything. We caught 6 or 7 species that day, and in a fairly short amount of time before all the rain came in, and it was really cool to see how well they work. So, brother, I appreciate it. I appreciate you and Luana hosting us there. That was just such a fun day, and we'll have to get back down there soon. This time we purposely didn't really do any videoing. We wanted to learn ourselves. So this was more about learning the technique and seeing it in action. And now that we kind of know what to expect, next time we're going to go down there and bring some more cameras. But of course, we did get a couple of funny videos just from Luke's head cam that he had on during that time of Marcos netting this free swimming snook, and a couple other really cool things that we got to see. So, brother, thank you again. Where can they go follow you and Luana? Is the best place Instagram? Obviously, for an insider, make sure to follow Marcos and the Insider Club. Where else can they find you guys?
Yeah, I'll be on Instagram, fishon_BR, and Luana is going to be. Hold up, I gotta ask Luana. What is it? Oh, just Luana Pigato. She has like few of them. I never know which one she used. So Luana Pigato is the Luana, Luana, Pigato, Pigatto, Pigato. And that's where her catches are, and all my catches are on fishon_BR.
Excellent. Everyone go follow them, and we'll put some links to all this stuff and some of the video footage we talked about in the show notes. That's saltstrong.com/podcast. And then finally, if you're not an insider, remember, come join us. Come join me and Luke and Marcos and the 14,000 other fish fans that are out there putting all kinds of helpful tips and things like this. I mean, this is something now that all the insiders are going to get to learn from, and just another new way, a new application to go out there and catch big fish in areas that I normally would just drive right over and kind of pass by. So it was certainly an awesome learning lesson. So, brother, thank you guys again, and I can't wait to go do it again soon.
You're welcome, man. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It was nice to talk about it. It's been I was protective of this for a long time, but it's time to come out, and now better time than South Strong, man. You guys are awesome. Love fishing with you, and you guys are welcome on my boat anytime.
I appreciate that, my friend. All right, guys, thank you for all the love, all the support, and we will talk to you on the next episode. We out. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.